If you're familiar with the Williams sisters story, you know that the elder of the two tennis phenoms, Venus, was initially touted to be the next big thing in the sport, while the younger sister Serena was more of an afterthought. However, before the girls were even teenagers, their father Richard Williams predicted that Serena would become the better of the two.
You have to be rough, you have to be tough, you have to be strong, and mentally, you just have to be unbelievable sound. She has every quality to be a champion, and she will be. And that's what makes Venus Venus. And Serena, it's something like a pet bulldog. She does, once she get a hold to you, she won't let go. Serena plays angles better than any woman or any man I ever seen play tennis. And she's so strong. And she hits the ball so well with a ground stroke. And her hands are just unreal. Serena probably be a better player than Venus. That's not to compare my girls, but she will be.
We all know that Richard was indeed correct. Serena ended up with 23 Grand Slam singles titles to Venus's 7, and Serena had the 19-12 edge in their head-to-head. But how exactly did younger sis surpass older sis? Serena's 8-part In the Arena ESPN Plus docuseries provided us with some insights. According to ESPN, In the Arena Serena Williams, directed by Gautam Chopra, offers fans an intimate look into the life and career of one of the greatest athletes of all time. Through 8 captivating episodes, the series unveils Williams' journey from a young tennis prodigy to a global icon, while highlighting the personal and professional challenges she has faced and conquered. The first 2 episodes are already out, and they focus more on the early part of Serena's career and her initial rise to Grand Slam glory. This will be an analysis/commentary video of the docuseries, and I'll add additional context to things that the series uncovers as both a Williams sisters fan and a journalist. I combined my analysis of the first 2 episodes into one because I was busy covering Wimbledon when that first episode dropped, and I did not have time to make a standalone episode 1 analysis, but I'm really glad that I did that because the first 2 parts both emphasize a well-known point, which is without Venus, there would be no Serena. Venus is featured prominently in both episodes, and we hear thoughts and anecdotes from her, which I love because Venus's story deserves to be told as well. Just a disclaimer, I am not trying to disrespect Venus by any means with this video or the title. She's a legend in her own right and deserves the utmost respect. I also want to note that Venus's 2011 diagnosis with the injury-sapping Sjogren syndrome significantly impacted her performance, and for sure is a reason why she was not able to achieve as much on the court as she probably should have. But still, the documentary reveals those distinctive champion qualities as well as some really unfair circumstances that set Serena apart from her sister. If this is your first time seeing my face, hello, my name is Christian Bassnight, and welcome to my channel, Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. Make sure you all subscribe and click that notification bell so you all are notified whenever I post my other 6 In the Arena breakdown videos to accompany the remaining 6 episodes of the docuseries. Now, getting into the first episode, which is titled Out of the Shadows, we get the well-known backstory of how the sisters even got into tennis. Their father, Richard Williams, saw a female player, Virginia Ruzici, win $40,000 for 4 days of playing at the Salt Lake Women's Games. Richard had only made $52,000 in 1 year, and it was then when he realized he was, quote, in the wrong business. He then told his wife Oracene that they needed to make 2 more kids, and that night he wrote up a plan for Venus and Serena. Oracene already had 3 girls from a previous relationship, and she really didn't want any more children. But Richard hid her birth control, which is... and Oracene ultimately gave birth to Venus on June 17th, 1980. Soon after, Richard made one of Oracene's friends take the birth control pills from Oracene's handbag, and then came Serena, who was born on September 26th, 1981. Richard was not poor by any means. He had his own security business, the Samson Security Service, which did pretty well. But he wanted his family to live in the rough streets of Compton, California and South Central LA to toughen up the girls and prepare them for what they'd face as 2 black women breaking into a predominantly white sport. Richard is known for being the big mastermind and for coaching the girls, but as Serena mentions in the docuseries, her mother Oracene was also very instrumental in the girls' upbringing and was a coach herself. In the 2011 2011 documentary Venus and Serena, Oracene said that she worked with Serena most of the time while Richard trained Venus because apparently Serena was too much for Richard to handle. Venus and Serena had relatively similar game styles, but Serena's serve, for one, is considerably more consistent and effective than Venus's, which made the difference in some of their matches. Perhaps Serena's earlier years with Oracene gave her the edge in some key departments. When the girls were training in Compton, Venus got the bulk of the attention. Her name was in all the magazines, getting featured story pieces and having sponsors clamor over her. At 11 years old, Venus had an undefeated 63-0 record on the USTA junior circuit and was ranked number 1 amongst the under 12 players in Southern California, which is an incredible achievement because at that point, SoCal and Florida, those sections were the most competitive sections amongst the juniors in the United States. Serena's stats weren't too shabby either, as she had a 46-3 win-loss record and was the number 1 ranked junior in the 10 and under class in Florida. Serena still was more of an afterthought or a small mention in those Venus big feature pieces. It was Venus, and then she has a kid sister who also plays tennis, but she's probably not going to be as good. The real focus was on Venus, and Venus deserved that focus because she was clearly the better player. She was taller and stronger than Serena, and Serena's game, as she mentioned in the series, was just mainly hitting lobs and drop shots and was essentially a pusher. She knew that she could not beat Venus either unless she cheated, and she said any ball that was on the line, she called it out, and that really, to me, foreshadowed that hunger and dog-like mentality that Serena had even when playing her sister Venus. While Venus, she'd never do anything like that to her little sister. Y'all remember that statement in the intro about Richard saying how Serena would become the better player than Venus ultimately? Well, Serena revealed at the time she never believed what her father said, and she thought that Venus would always be better than her, which is surprising to me. Serena thought that her father only said that to give her more recognition. Serena mentions multiple times that coming up behind Venus was one of the best things to happen in her career, as she was able to learn a lot from V, who also motivated her to work hard just to keep up. Venus was always on the court and always grinding, so Serena did the same because she did not want to be left behind. Richard uprooted the family and they moved to Florida when Venus and Serena were 11 and 10 years old respectively. There the girls trained at the Rick Macci Tennis Academy, and Macci, at that point, he had trained Jennifer Capriati, one of the biggest child tennis prodigies ever. Much to Macci's dismay, Richard soon after pulled his daughters out of the junior tournaments because he wanted them to focus more on their education, and he feared potential burnout from the rigors of traveling all across the country at such a young age. When the girls did eventually turn pro, their debut showings mirrored the different grandeur and hype each sister received when they came up in the juniors. Venus's debut pro match came at the 1994 Bank of the West Classic in Oakland, where she defeated fellow American Shawn Stafford, who was ranked 58th in the world at the time. Her following match, Williams led the then world number 2 and reigning Roland Garros and US Open champion Arantxa Sanchez Vicario 6-2, 3-1, but she lost the last 11 games of the match to fall in 3 sets. This match was depicted in the Oscar-winning movie King Richard. Side note, Vicario later said that she was not happy about how she was portrayed in that film because apparently they dramatized that seemingly strategic bathroom break that threw Venus off. Still, even though she lost, it was incredible that 14-year-old Venus could push such a champion like Sanchez Vicario like that, and Vicario, she was ranked number 2 in the world at the time. That tournament in Oakland was somewhat big in prestige. It was a tier 2. Now, back then it was the Grand Slams, then the tier 1 tournaments, as now we call them the WTA 1000s, and then the tier 2 tournaments are below that, and that would be our WTA 500s. And then finally, tier 3 tournaments would be our WTA 250s. When 14-year-old Serena made her pro debut a year after Venus in 1995, she was forced to play in the qualifying round of a tier 3 tournament, the Bell Challenge in Quebec City. That same year, the WTA made a rule change which prevented 14-year-olds from playing tier 2 or higher tournaments like the Bank of the West Classic due to the then crash and burn of child prodigy Jennifer Capriati. Serena threatened to sue the WTA for not allowing her to play in that same Bank of the West Classic tournament where she sought a wild card. As Serena said in the docuseries, her debut showing was kind of a disaster. Williams missed her flight after waiting for a hot dog in the airport, and getting to Canada, Serena and her father traveled to 4 different airports, and most of her rackets were lost along the way. They finally touched down in Quebec the night before her match, and there was just no time for Williams to practice and even get a feel for the courts. Serena was not afforded the luxury of playing and competing in a center stadium or an arena. Tennis writer Robin Finn, who covered Williams' debut for the New York Times, wrote, "Instead of a stadium showcase, Serena competed on a regulation practice court at a tennis club in suburban Vanier, side by side with another qualifying match. Williams drew 149th ranked Annie Miller as her first round qualies opponent, and she lost handily, 6-1, 6-1, only holding serve one time. Serena said after that she felt like an amateur and realized that she was not ready to go pro. That lackluster debut worked out for the best though, because in that practically 2-year hiatus until her next tournament, Serena traveled with Venus as her hitting partner as the elder Williams sister began making bigger splashes on the tour. Serena got the vital experience of traveling on the pro tour and getting familiar with the top women and their games without having to deal with the pressure and expectation from competing.
It was the best position I could have been in not to be in the front, you know? Just watching her handle all the pressure, handle all the reporters. By the time I did have an opportunity to go out there in a more serious way, it was like I had 2 years of experience of playing.
Venus's first big breakthrough came at the 1997 US Open, where she powered through that tournament unseeded en route to the finals before falling to world number 1 Martina Hingis. But 2 months later, Serena had her little time to shine at the 1997 Ameritech Cup in Chicago. There, as a wild card and ranked 304th in the world, Williams earned her first 3 pro main draw victories and made a huge splash. The 16-year-old beat 2 top 10 players in Mary Pierce and her childhood idol, Monica Seles, before falling to Lindsay Davenport in the semifinal. That tournament propelled Serena inside the top 100 and finally made people take more notice of her on-court achievements. In early 1998, Serena began racking up more impressive victories, and by the time of March's Lipton Championships, Serena was 40th in the world. The docuseries highlights this tournament as a pivotal moment in Serena's early career. As Serena said, at that point, the Lipton was the biggest tournament outside of the slams, basically what Indian Wells is today. The docuseries highlighted Serena's quarterfinal match against the world number 1 Martina Hingis, where Serena led 5-3 in the third set with 2 match points at 40-15. However, the nerves got to Williams and she kind of choked that match away, losing 7-6 in the third set. Funny enough, if Serena came out on top and won that match, she would have had to play Venus in the semifinal, who went on to win that tournament. Venus and Serena played their first ever match against one another at the Australian Open a couple months earlier, which the elder sister won in straight sets. Serena was disappointed about that Hingis loss, but she was not super upset over it. She knew that she had Hingis and that it'd only be a matter of time before she'd take her and the rest of the tour down. 1999 proved to be a even more transformative year for Serena. In February, she won her first ever pro title at the Open Gauche de France, which of course was held in France. Williams defeated 4 French players en route to her maiden title, including Amélie Mauresmo in the final, who at that point had reached that year's Australian Open final. Williams cites this tournament as making her mentally stronger as she played in a packed indoor arena that was entirely against her. It really helped sharpen her mentally, and it gave her the belief that she could win under practically any condition. And to me, I think it's part of the reason why she was able to withstand all of the drama and everything that came later, years later, at the 2001 Indian Wells tournament, which we'll get into later in a future episode. I don't think many people realize either that playing against a home favorite, especially in a final, is not easy, just as Aryna Sabalenka. But you know who also won their first title in France while playing a top-ranked French woman in the final? Alicia Parks. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta say. Venus also won a title that same week that Serena won her first, as she defended her maiden title in Oklahoma. This was the first and only time that Venus and Serena won titles in the same week. Serena went on an incredible tear soon after and picked up her second title her very next tournament, this one being even bigger at the 1999 Everett Cup, which is now known as the BNP Paribas Open or simply Indian Wells. There, Serena Williams beat the then GOAT Steffi Graf in the final. Williams nearly pulled off the Sunshine Double the following week, which is when you win both Indian Wells and Miami in the same year. But she fell in the final to her older sister Venus, who was the defending champion. At this point, it wasn't just Venus anymore getting all the attention. Now people began truly considering both Venus and Serena as the next 2 tennis superstars. We didn't really hear as much about or from Serena until the summer hardcourt swing. She had lost early round 3 at that year's Roland Garros, and then she missed Wimbledon that year due to a bout with the flu. But when Serena did return, she instantly made a huge splash. Williams picked up her 3rd title in Los Angeles at the JP Morgan Chase Open, beating world number 1 Martina Hingis in the semis. Venus had also won a title that summer in New Haven, beating world number 2 Lindsay Davenport in the final. Heading into that year's US Open, more eyes were on the Williams sisters to get their hands on a Grand Slam singles trophy. They had won big titles that season, and Steffi Graf, who retired after Wimbledon was no longer in the picture. The sisters were also put on opposite sides of the draw, and Father Richard predicted the sisters to meet in the final before the tournament even started. Serena said in the docuseries that her father told both sisters this tournament that this one would be unforgettable for them and it would be an opportunity for them to make history. Serena took that conversation with her father to heart, and she said that she knew she was going to win the Open before the tournament started. It was mentioned in that Venus and Serena 2011 documentary that Serena asked Arnon Milchan, the then owner of Puma, for a $2 million bonus when she won the tournament. Mind you, this was before the tournament started, so that shows you how confident Serena was that she'd take the title. Of course, we know that she did win it all, but her road to the title was truly outstanding. She beat 4 Grand Slam champions en route to the trophy, 5 if we count Kim Clijsters in round 3, who later went on to win multiple majors later in her career. Serena describes her run to the title as a premonition. Williams rolled her ankle in the quarterfinals against 4th seed Monica Seles, and really I didn't know about this and that it was this much of an issue. She got through that match and was aided by a day of rest to then take down the defending champion Lindsay Davenport in the semis for her 3rd consecutive 3rd set win. Afterwards, Venus and Hingis played the 2nd semifinal match. A battle-worn Hingis fought past the elder Williams, who was dealing with leg cramps, and sealed the 2-hour victory by a score of 6-1, 4-6, 6-3. Venus admits that she did not step up and handle the occasion well. She said that she was more or less waiting for Martina to lose the match, rather she proactively tried to take it and win it. After Venus's loss, Serena got her racket immediately and went to the practice court because she said that she wasn't going to lose, and she knew that Hingis knew that she went to practice, so it was all a mental thing. Once again, just learning from Venus's mistakes helped Serena. Fast forward a day later to the finals between Serena and Hingis. Serena lost the coin toss, and Martina said, "I'll receive." Serena responded with, "Are you sure about that?" which low-key startled Hingis. Context: Serena was known for her serve, even back then, as being one of the best serves on the women's tour. So she's basically asking Hingis, why would you let me start serving and give me the advantage? Do you not know who I am? Do you not know how big my serve is? Serena says she won the first 3 games because she thought Hingis was so startled by what she had said. I really liked hearing Serena's perspectives about that Hingis match, even aside from just that coin toss anecdote, which was hilarious by the way. Williams, she led Hingis 6-3, 5-3, but she felt the pressure and the nerves that of course come with trying to win your maiden slam title. She says she felt like she had to close this match out in straight sets because she was getting tired, and she felt that Hingis would have the edge and ultimately win if it did go the distance. Serena ultimately did win the match in straight sets, 6-3, 7-6, to become the first African-American woman to win a major singles title since Althea Gibson did it in 1958, and she became the first African-American period to win a Grand Slam singles title since Arthur Ashe in 1975. Serena gave an extra reaction, and she admitted in the docuseries that it was really just an act because she knew all along that she was going to win the title and that it was just the physical catching up with what was going to happen. People, as they did throughout her entire career, tried to downplay Serena's accomplishment by saying that Hingis was exhausted and that Venus did all the dirty work for Serena, taking all the wind out of Martina's sails from that semifinal match the night prior.
You just have to think that the sister from another planet, Venus, took quite a bit of the starch out of Hingis in the semis. She should definitely get an assist this match.
Hingis did have a later finish than Serena, but as Serena correctly stated in the docuseries, she had the much tougher road to the final, having to play 4 3-setters in a row and beating, quite frankly, much tougher competition. Meanwhile, the only 3-setter Hingis played the entire tournament was against Venus in that semifinal. Side note too, Serena played doubles that tournament, and her and Venus went all the way, so she spent even more time out there on the court. Speaking of Venus, she infamously looked sullen and sad in that black Reebok hoodie, and in the docuseries, Venus said that she was more caught up in her own emotions about losing that semifinal to Martina. V has since called that loss one of the most devastating losses of her entire career because she felt that she was waiting for Martina to give her the match, and once again, she did not take it. To add salt on the wound, that was the perfect opportunity for Venus to finally win her first slam. I think that she really would have beaten Serena too, for reasons that I'll explain later on in this video. It really hurt Venus to not become the first one to win a slam out of of the family because she was the prodigy, and on paper, she was the one who was supposed to strike first and win the major. Mama Orsine referred to Venus as the guinea pig in a sense during that 2011 documentary, and I think it was really more to her Venus' expense than her benefit, especially early on. Serena talks about the advantage of being the younger sister who wasn't expected to accomplish as much.
The best thing that happened to my career was coming up behind my sister. Everyone expected her to do good. I can't imagine the pressure she felt as a 15-year-old and as a 16-year-old. Like, I don't know if I would have handled that pressure the same. I feel like I was able to go so much faster because of everything that she had went through.
However, the pressure and weight were now firmly on Serena as the Grand Slam singles champion. Williams said that as soon as she left that press conference after her triumph, she felt a big red X on her back, which transitions us into the second episode, Into the Light. After Serena won the US Open title, everyone thought, oh, Richard is right, Serena's just the better of the two sisters. But Venus said, whoa, 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 hold my Reeboks. This time it was Venus who learned from Serena, as she felt inspired to show the same courage and fight that little sis showed at the 1999 US Open.
When I lost that match at the US Open, I made up my mind that it didn't matter what it took, I was going to do the right thing to win. I wasn't going to be afraid or whatever it was. It's like, this is the last time in my life I'm going to let this happen. I immediately wanted more and better for myself. Immediately. I think Serena actually helped me to get to the level I needed to get to.
The early part of the second episode delves into those 2000 and 2001 years, which saw Venus get her first taste of major glory, while Serena struggled to back up that US Open triumph. Venus had a different look and just overall more swagger out there on court in 2000, and she played like it too, having one of the best summers in tennis history that year. V won her first slam at Wimbledon in 2000, beating Hingis, Serena, and Davenport back to back. She followed that up immediately with the title at the US Open, and then she claimed gold at the Summer Olympics in Sydney. Venus went on a 35-match win streak that included 6 titles, and it was the longest winning streak of the century until Iga Swiatek did her 37-match ditty in 2022. Venus successfully defended her Wimbledon title in 2001, and she was the favorite to do the same at that summer's US Open. By that point, Serena hadn't progressed past the semifinals at a major since winning her first slam, but she came into New York in far greater form, and she powered her way to the final, beating 3 top 10 players en route: number 6 Justine Henin, number 3 Lindsay Davenport, and number 1 Hingis in the semifinals. Venus won her semifinal against the world number 2 Jennifer Capriati to set up the first all-Williams Slam singles final. This was a historic match for many reasons. It was the first primetime US Open women's final, and it was the first time that 2 siblings played in a major final in the Open era. There were a lot of theatrics around this match. I think they had a whole choir sing, and Diana Ross performed, and Venus said that she wasn't about the hype at all, which is perhaps why she was the more focused of the two and why she played better in this match. The elder sister did prevail with a dominant 6-2, 6-4 rout. Their wins against one another were very bittersweet and businesslike, like Venus mentioned in the docuseries, and it's understandable because it's literally your sister you're beating, the closest person to you. Serena was not happy about losing, but she said that she was content with Venus beating her because in her mind, V was just simply the better player. But after that US Open final, Serena had a pivotal career turning point that even surprised me when watching this docuseries. Williams said a couple days after that US Open final, she stayed with her first boyfriend at his place in DC for a couple of weeks. After she left him and went home, he ghosted her. She was distraught, but rather than sulk, Serena used that as fuel, and she said that he's going to regret this for the rest of his life. It was just the excuse she needed to train harder and go the extra mile, and she came back in 2002 with a vengeance. After missing the year's first major in Australia due to an ankle injury, Serena returned in February/March and won 3 big titles in Scottsdale, Miami, and Rome. Serena thanked that boyfriend who ghosted her too in the docuseries, which I thought was funny. Now, being the investigative journalist I am, I got curious about who this guy was. Who dare ghost the Serena Williams? I did some digging, and it appears that the former football player LeVar Arrington is the culprit. The New York Post reported that the pair were dating in 2000. The Williams family apparently denied the rumors, which were only heightened when Arrington was spotted in Serena's player box during the 2001 US Open. Even more, Arrington was a linebacker for the then Washington Redskins, so it was clear that Serena was talking about him because, of course, the Redskins were based in DC. Coincidentally, in June, Arrington confirmed that he and Serena dated while sitting down on the Penn State Post podcast. Arrington said that the pair met on the set of an ESPN commercial and they dated for a while. When asked why it didn't work out, he simply said that they were young. That's a crazy way of saying I ghosted someone after dating them for years, but you do you, bro. In her 2009 On the Line memoir, Serena wrote of Arrington, "This guy tore my heart in half. Then he ripped those pieces and stepped on them and backed his car over them. And the worst part was he left me thinking it was me. Damn. He really had my girl going through it." Serena definitely accomplished her goal of making sure LeVar would see her everywhere and wouldn't forget her because, of course, she became the GOAT of women's tennis. Arrington, meanwhile, enjoyed a semi-successful pro football career that was halted after 7 years due to injuries and a freak motorcycle accident. That's why you don't ghost people. Just kidding. My bad, LeVar, on that accident. My condolences. Anyways, back to Serena's 2002 season. She entered that year's Roland Garros Championships as a decent favorite for the first time in her career, enjoying a career high ranking of number 3 in the world. Once again, she and Venus were on opposite sides of the draw and both progressed through to make the final. Serena said that a close family friend told her that she had what it took to beat Venus, but she just needed to believe that she could do it. That friend told Serena it's okay to be better than her and that she would regret it if she didn't actually try to win and beat her older sister. Of course, that talk helped, but I think that it also aided Serena that she got a win over Venus months prior in Miami in the semifinals, albeit she played horribly in that match. Even though it wasn't on the same magnitude of a Grand Slam final, Serena then knew that she could actually beat Venus, her big sister. When speaking of the Roland Garros final, Serena said that she never looked at Venus the entire match. She pretended that she wasn't playing Venus, rather that she was playing someone else. She said she focused on just one point at a time, and it helped. Serena won 7-5, 6-3 to claim her second major singles title and her first since that initial 1999 triumph. Winning that Roland Garros title was very important for Serena because she was no longer a one-slam wonder. After the tournament, Venus and Serena became ranked world number 1 and world number 2 respectively in the WTA rankings, and it was the first time in history that two sisters were ranked 1 and 2 at the same time. But something clicked in Serena, and she said that she just had to have that number 1 ranking. Anything Venus had, Serena wanted. Williams then became obsessed with becoming the world number 1, and she got that ranking by making the 2002 Wimbledon final, where she again beat Venus in straight sets. Serena was by far the best player in the world after she won her 3rd consecutive slam title at the 2002 US Open Championships, beating Venus yet again in the final in her infamous catsuit. Serena was just a force and even had that intimidation factor over older sister Venus.
Any other player, I felt like I could win. When I went to that match, I didn't really know if I could. I thought she played incredible.
Serena enjoyed an unbelievable 2002 year. Winning 3 majors in one season is an extremely rare feat, and any player would be over the moon with that, but Serena felt that she really couldn't enjoy those 3 slam victories because they all came against her beloved sister.
It was very matter of fact. That person you care about the most in the world, you have to watch them have their lowest point in their life every freaking Grand Slam. And I cried. I really cried a lot about that.
To the apparent dismay of many tennis fans, Venus and Serena competed in their 4th consecutive slam final at the 2003 Australian Open. At this point, people were tired of seeing the sisters dominate, and they wanted 2 different women in the slam finals. To be honest, even though it sounds like a dream to me having back-to-back-to-back all Williams sisters finals, I understand why people were a little bit annoyed with it because they also just did not bring their best tennis against one another in those slam finals. The Australian Open final was probably the most pivotal slam final between the two at that point in their careers. Serena was on the cusp of completing her coveted Serena Slam, which is when you win all 4 majors in a row, not in a calendar year. She'd also complete the career slam too of simply winning all 4 majors, singles titles. Venus, meanwhile, was trying to get her name back in the winner's circle after 3 consecutive slam finals losses. A 4th in a row to the same person would be pretty gut-wrenching and devastating, don't you think? The sisters also had 4 slams apiece at this point, and the head-to-head was tied at 5 apiece, so it could very much decide who was the best sister at the moment. Right now, I do think it was the most important match in their rivalry. Venus was a bit of a favorite coming into this final because she looked in sharper form in the rounds prior and she didn't drop a set the entire tournament. Meanwhile, Serena not only survived a near defeat in her opening round match against 56th ranked Emily Lloyd, but she saved 2 match points and fought back from a 5-1 deficit in the third set to defeat Kim Clijsters in the semifinal. The pair played by far their best Slam final even to this day, as they split the first 2 sets to finally give us a third set decider. Serena admitted that Venus was the better player in their final, and she truly should have won this tournament. Serena was battling blisters and, quite frankly, a superior opponent, and the dual emotions of potentially having to beat her sister for the 4th time in a row in a Slam final, as well as missing out on this historic achievement. Serena says she ultimately had to put Venus's feelings aside and go for the win, and that's exactly what she did. Venus did falter for sure in the latter part of this match. Her second serve, which was an Achilles heel throughout her entire career, broke down for sure. Same thing with her forehand, another big Achilles heel. That brings me back to the first episode of this docuseries, where Serena recalled a story of her falling off a skateboard as a kid and injuring her wrist. She really could only hit forehands during the injury, and even Venus said that she noticed the improvement in her sister's forehand, and she joked that maybe I should have fallen and had that accident too. Yeah, it sounds silly, but low-key it makes you think. Watching that little monologue of the final few games of the Australian Open final, I was almost moved to tears. ESPN really tugged on the heartstrings with that one, because with the sad music in the background of Serena's just gut-wrenching sound bites about the heartache of having to play and beat her sister, her best friend, like, y'all need to watch that scene for yourselves, because it was powerful. It was something else. Serena said that playing Venus was the hardest thing she's ever had to do in her life, and I don't think we truly understand and grasp just what those two women did, playing in 4 consecutive Slam finals against one another. And they were sisters, of course, but too, they were doubles partners, best friends. They even lived with each other at the time. It was understandable and expected that they weren't playing their best tennis against one another on the big stages. But here they gave us a great final, and Serena came out on top yet again to get the coveted Serena Slam. Serena should be over the moon with this accomplishment, but her sullen reaction tells it all. She is happy with her accomplishment, but she really can't fully celebrate because she knows she just denied her sister another major. Venus doesn't seem too bitter about those losses, and she chalks it up to Serena simply being the better player. She said, if I would have played anyone else in those finals, I would have won those. I think that is true, but I think those specific Slam finals losses were a big missed opportunity for Venus. As she said, she never again made a French Open final in her career, and she would only make one more Australian Open final, which was in 2017, once again losing to sister Serena. I also think Venus lost that aura that she once had in those initial 2000 years, especially after that first Rolling Girls finals loss, because she was the head and shoulders best player on the tour. Venus would never return to #1 in 2002, and she never once again showcased that level of dominance, consistent dominance that we once saw from her. While it's important to give credit to Serena's raw talent, there's no denying that not dealing with the pressure and expectations that Venus encountered helped tremendously, especially in the earlier part of her career. Serena was able to learn from her older sister, which enabled her to win a Slam first. Still, afterwards, Venus proved that she was the better player, at the time at least, winning those 4 majors between the span of 2000 and 2001. But that's where that pit bull analogy Richard used earlier to describe Serena rings true. Serena just has that dogged mentality and was able to turn heartbreak from being ghosted into triumph, which not many people can do. That dogged mentality also enabled Serena and helped her put her emotions aside and beat her sister in all those major finals. Not many people can do that either. I don't think anyone can except for Serena, low-key. There's that added factor too of the little sister syndrome, because I just do not see Venus, the older sister, being that ruthless to little sis. Venus said herself that Serena was the more emotionally intelligent sister, and that enabled the younger Williams to still win slams later in her career. She was able to adapt and evolve her game. Venus really should have double-digit slams even with Serena being in the picture, but she simply did not bring her best tennis in the big moments, and she was not willing to evolve her game like Serena did in the latter part of her career. Ultimately, Serena's mentality, combined with her slightly more advantageous upbringing and rise to fame, contributed to her being the more successful Williams sister. That's it for my In the Arena episodes 1 and 2 analysis, and let me know what y'all's thoughts on the docuseries if you have watched it as well. If you have not watched it, make sure y'all go ahead and get that ESPN subscription, because y'all are missing out. Again, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you're notified whenever I post more In the Arena episode breakdowns. Episode 3 focuses on Serena's darker times following the death of her sister Yetunde and her infamous run to the 2007 Australian Open title, so you don't want to miss that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one here on Christian's Court.